Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which will focus on understanding India's headline inflation through high-frequency prices. My name is Banner Fernandez, and I'm the Global Marketing Manager at ISI Emerging Markets Group. Today's webinar will be presented by my colleague, Rohini Sanyal. She's the Research Economist for India. In this webinar, we will explore how daily retail prices published by three governmental bodies, that is the National Horticulture Board, known as the NHB, the Department of Consumer Affairs, and the Indian Oil Corporation, can be employed to detect the movement of inflation in India even before the official CPI figures are published. So before we get started, to some of you who are joining in, mostly non-subscribers who are not aware of who we are and what we do as a company, ISI emerging market information for over 25 years. We have two brands, EMIS and CEIC Data. Our EMIS brand focuses on providing company, industry, and country research on emerging economies, and CEIC Data focuses on offering macroeconomic and industry data on over 200 economies. The presentation that we have today, all the content is drawn from our CEIC Data service. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce our presenter. As I mentioned, Rohini Sanyal. She is our research economist for India and has been working with us since 2019. She has a background in economics and has graduated with Masters in Economics from the University of Warwick in the UK. She has 5 years of experience working for some of the well-known research institutes in India. Some of them are the National Council of Applied Economic Research and the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. She's also worked for Bain & Company, which is also a well-known management consultancy firm. So just before we get started, just a few housekeeping points for you to help you interact during the session. At any time, you will have the opportunity to ask questions. All you need to do is submit your questions using the question panel to your right. Rohini will start answering your questions in the order that they have come in as soon as she's done with the presentation. We have also uploaded the presentation in the handout section that is just above the question panel. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Rohini for the presentation.
Thank you, Bennett, and hi everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join our webinar today. Let's get started with why we're doing this exercise. First of all, inflation is a very important tool to learn about consumer behavior, and maintaining price stability is essential for the proper functioning of an economy. It is therefore used by central banks around the world for designing monetary policy. The Reserve Bank of India also follows a twin mandate of maintaining inflation in a target band while keeping in mind the objective of growth. To give you a quick background, the Consumer Price Index was introduced in India in 2009, and it quickly replaced the Wholesale Price Index as the main measure of inflation. Now, this happened because the use of CPI as nominal anchor in monetary policy framework is preferred because retail prices are a better indicator of consumer sentiment and investment than wholesale prices. So CPI is calculated by the Central Statistics Office using information received from 1,181 villages and 1,114 urban markets that cover all districts of the country. A total of 299 products are included in the survey, and their respective weights have been calculated on the basis of the 68th round consumer expenditure survey by the NSS, which is 2011 and 12 round. In terms of methodology, first an elementary index is created using a Jevons index, and then the Lasperis index formula is applied to arrive at the headline number. I've taken this information from a working paper published by the RBI in 2017. Now, if anyone wants to know which one it is, please do write to us and I will send it to you. Inflation, excuse me, inflation is usually seen through two main numbers, the headline and the core inflation. Now, the prices of food and fuel are dependent on exogenous factors. So core inflation is usually considered more crucial. Now, after the global financial crisis, the Reserve Bank of India started having issues with the multiple indicator approach, which was the earlier measure of designing monetary policy framework. And then they adopted inflation targeting for framing monetary policy. In early 2012, India had to deal with double-digit inflation rate that extended all the way up till the end of 2013. And you can see it here in the chart around this phase where it increased to around 12%, the headline number, and the core inflation went up to around 8%. And then due to some stringent policy actions taken by the RBI, helped bring this number below 4.9 in 2015. And this was done under, of course, the governor then, Dr. Raghuram Rajan. So if you see here, the headline inflation has been increasing since January 2019. You can see it here. But a stark increase happened only in the second half of 2019, which was primarily driven by an increase in food prices. Now, many of you may also remember how onion prices soared to 120 rupees a kilogram as opposed to the usual 40 or 50 rupees. Core inflation now, on the other hand, has been increasing since the beginning of the pandemic. This is definitely more concerning because an increase in core inflation is suggestive of increases in purchasing power, so there's greater demand. This could be possibly a result of supply chain disruptions coupled with uncertainty and increase in inflation expectations thanks to the pandemic. In terms of food and beverages and fuel and light, the CPI numbers suggest a moderation from the previous highs in January and then in March. So for fuel and light, the increase was in March, while that for food and beverages was around December 2019. The CPI data now is usually released on the 12th day of every month for the previous month, which gives rise to a 12-day lag since the end of the month. But if we consider the real-time prices from the very beginning of the month, then this actually converts to a lag of over 40 days. This is where the daily prices are helpful. High-frequency data has been garnering a lot of interest recently, and especially now in this pandemic world. This is evident from the growing demand for more real-time updates about the economy from data such as mobility data and then nowcasting models trying to predict the current situation of the economy. In our case, we are using the daily prices published by three main governmental bodies. The first is the National Horticulture Board that releases daily data on fruits and vegetable prices across a group of cities. The second comes from the Department of Consumer Affairs, which releases the prices of 22 agricultural commodities from 114 market centers. In addition, the Indian Oil Corporation releases daily fuel prices for India's 4 main cities, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, and Delhi. Excuse me. Considering the items that come under the daily data, fruits, vegetables, cereal, milk, pulses, and sugar, these make up for about 32.5% of the food and beverages basket, which in itself is 45.86% of the total inflation basket. Now, fuel and light contribute 6.84% of to the total CPI basket. And because these components collectively form about 40% of the CPI basket, any fluctuations in these prices are most likely to trigger a fluctuation in the headline numbers. Now, therefore, we can use these high-frequency data to gauge the current movement of the indicator. Having said that, I would also like to make something clear that this is not an inflation nowcasting model. This is a very simplistic model that we use to understand the movement of prices and not a particular number. So how does the model work? In terms of data selection, first the prices of fruits and vegetables are considered, and this can be a little bit more complicated than the others because due to the seasonal nature of the items, there are changes in the cities which the data is available from, and then even changes in the items themselves. For example, mangoes. which are not available any longer in India, and you don't have prices for it now, but you had prices for mangoes 2 months back. So we have selected cities for which data is available till about a week previously. So to give you an example, so for our current edition of the insight, we are using data for fruits and vegetables which have daily prices until September 23rd. For other items that are sourced from the Department of Consumer Affairs, we select modal prices. Lastly, the daily fuel prices are considered for 3 cities, Chennai, Mumbai, and Kolkata. And this has happened because at the time when the insight was being published, for some reason, the prices for Delhi were not being released by the Indian Oil Corporation. It is back on again. So maybe for the future, any updates for this insight, we could include the prices of Delhi as well. Once the data selection is done, we fill any gaps in the data using a linear interpolation model, and we make it consistent. For averaging the prices, we use the city population as weight. The population data that we use is published by the Census of India, and these are the 2011 numbers, since that was the last round of the data. The weights for fruits and vegetables have been calculated separately depending on the cities where the item is available. Once this exercise is complete, then we take the year-on-year changes of all the values to account for seasonality. Now coming to what the heat maps that we generate look like and how it compares against the actual numbers for inflation. So here you can see that I've taken the numbers. These are fruits from back in June and July period. And you can see that for June, there has not been any major increase in prices. The green is the increase and the red is the decrease, just to clarify. So for June, we see the major increase has happened in two types of mangoes. And that is pretty much, and maybe Safeda and Totapari as well here. You can see these mangoes. So that is where all the increase has happened. And hence there's not been a lot of inflation. The number is only 0.27. For July, the inflation pertaining to fruits has even come down to 0.07. So really little inflation there. And we can see that there's been a stark decline in the prices of apples. Here, even the mango prices have declined. Lime prices have been a little bit on the decline, apple royal. So overall, again, as you can estimate from this side, that there has not been a lot of increase in the prices, and it matches the overall inflation number for fruits. Coming to vegetables, we can see that there's been an increase in brinjal, in potatoes, both fresh and stored potatoes, okra. But at the same time, there has been a decrease in the prices for brinjal, chili, ginger, and especially tomato. And therefore, we have the June inflation value at 4%. Now, I know as compared to fruits, this looks high, but if we consider the value, the inflation numbers for vegetables previously, then this is actually a very small number. So for July, again, we see there's a slight increase. There's actually quite a bit of increase in potatoes, both fresh and stored. And I think potato being a staple of Indian diets triggers a larger increase in inflation than any of the other, maybe except onions, other vegetables. So for July, we have the inflation recorded at 11.1%. Coming to pulses and oils, here again, you can see that gram dal and tur dal have seen a decrease in prices, while urad dal and moong dal have seen a slight increase, well, quite a bit of increase in the parts which are dark green. And therefore, we see the June value at 17.6. Now here, for July, even though the number is similar, we can see that there has been a consistent increase in the prices of urad dal and maybe even more stark increase for moong dal. However, there are periods of some small moderation from here, let's say. So somewhere it's canceling each other out, and we have the number at 15.7, which is not too different from the June number. For oils and fats, we have an increase here in June, which is clearly visible from Vanaspati, and the June number is at 11.5%. But other than Vanaspati, we can see that there is not a lot of change. Rather, ground oil has seen quite a bit of decrease, and even for mustard oil. But when we look at the July values, you can see a consistent increase over Vanaspati, palm oil, and mustard oil, and that's triggering the inflation a little bit more than that in June. So overall, slightly higher, just as in case of vegetables. So slightly higher inflation for July. Now, in terms of cereals, sugar, milk, and others, here I've taken a set of miscellaneous items. We can see that sugar, gur, these have been pretty consistent. In terms of cereals, we can see atta, rice, and wheat. Wheat has seen a bit of an increase in phases. So for the June value, the inflation for cereals is 7.9%, and that for July is 6.9%, because we can see like there's some decrease in prices here, and then slight increases here. So it's sort of cancelling each other out. Not major changes. For sugar, same thing. There's not a lot of change, 2.9, 3.6. And for milk, again, 7 and 6.5. So again, pretty consistent through both periods, just slight increases. For fuel now, this is the interesting bit. We can see that for the June value, we get 0.5, and that is clearly happening because at first the diesel and petrol prices are down, and then they are on an increasing trend. But the Indian gas and auto gas are cancelling this out quite substantially, with a very strong decline in prices for both. So for the June value, we have a very slight rate of inflation for fuel. But for July, now that the prices have moderated for Indian and auto gas, the diesel and petrol prices are fueling the increase, and we see the increase at 2.6. So this is the most interesting part. Now, despite the simplicity, the model does well in terms of showing the overall movement of prices. However, these indicators are not without issues. First, despite being a daily series, the data from National Horticulture Board, the prices are not updated on a daily basis for all the cities. And you can see those gaps in data. If I go back, you could probably, here you can tell for mango, probably it was not available anymore. So there's a big gap here. Also, the data for the data, simple averages cannot be used, so we have to use weighted averages, and it's very difficult to do so when cities are changing continuously. So the population needs to be updated and changed for us to arrive at a single price for each fruit or vegetable. So, for example, in the updated version of this inside, we've used data for new cities such as Bhopal and Ahmedabad, as opposed to Raipur in the previous version that we did in July. Also, the seasonal items can change themselves, as I gave the example of mangoes, which are not available any longer. So that means some fruits and vegetables would be removed, and then some would be added to the list. And this makes it a bit more dynamic than we would actually want it to be for us to monitor the prices. Now let's have a look at the prices for August and September. So here we have fruits, and we can see that for August the number is 1%, and that's again looks like it's stemming from Sapota. But the price of apples have declined year on year quite a bit. However, if you see the graph here, the heat map here, you'll see that for September there's been a substantial decline in lime, mandarin, papaya, So it is possible that the number will remain either something similar or may even be lower than the value for August. If you look at vegetables, then we can see that again the number for August is increased to 11.4%, and this is again happening primarily because of the fresh and store potatoes, which have been displaying a very high increase in prices. But again, at the same time, we are seeing a decrease in the prices of ginger, okra, onion, tomatoes, and so on the overall, August values are at 11.4. However, for September, if you see this, it's very strong patch of green over here. And these are all staples, potatoes and tomatoes. So we might see a slight increase in the September values for inflation. And these numbers would be released in another 4 days, so we can match that. For pulses and oils, for August, again, we see 14.4, this stark increase in urad dal, moong dal, and urad dal is increasing quite even more substantially for September. So it's likely that it will remain, the inflation will remain similar, because we can see tur dal here and then moong dal sort of having this decrease in prices. So that might be beneficial for the overall group of pulses. Coming to oils, we can see the August value at 12.5%. Here again, we can see quite a bit of red. So, but groundnut oil has increased in parts. There are slight increases in vanaspati and palm oil, slight gains here. Going forward, groundnut oil is decreasing even further, but we have some increases in mustard oil here. So again, I would say that if these cancel each other out, then it will probably remain somewhere in the similar lines of the August number. Coming to cereals, sugar, milk, and others. For cereals, we had the inflation at 5.9. If you remember, then the prices, the inflation rate for June and July were also similar. So clearly, cereals, sugar, and milk, these are items which are not experiencing a lot of volatility at present. So keeping that in mind and looking at the heat map here, I think it's safe to assume that it will remain in similar territory. Now, coming to fuel, we can see that price of diesel had increased quite substantially, and even though petrol moderated in the first bit of August, did increase in the second part of August. Indian gas increased all throughout August, and we can see that being reflected in the price here. The inflation was at 3.1%. However, for September, we can see this strong decline in prices, and we can see here as well that the prices have declined. So my best assumption would be that for September, these values are going to decrease. The inflation value will be decreasing further. So overall, this model is very simplistic, but it captures the price movements of fuel, fruits, vegetables, and pulses, oils, all of the items quite well. And it can be very useful to gauge the direction of headline inflation in India. The monetary policy is currently in process, and we get to know the policy tomorrow. But that would also give us an idea as to how the movement of the headline inflation is. And perhaps this would be a good way to match the two. So having said that, back to Bennett.
Thank you so much, Rohini. Some really good insights there. So we'll now start taking the Q&A session, and we have started already receiving a lot of questions in. I encourage you all to use the question panel that is just to your right. The first question that we received, Rohini, is why not employ population weights for the DCA items?
Yes, good question. I mean, we can do the whole process for the DCA items by employing population weights or whatever system of weighting we want to employ. But it's just when the model prices are already existing, it's just easier to use that instead of weighting all of the cities and then coming at a single price point. I mean, it'll be interesting to actually look at it and compare it with the model prices, I guess. But right now, we're just using a very simple model. So we use the model prices instead of weighting it by each city.
Thank you, Rohini. The next question actually seems like it's coming from a subscriber who's interested to know where exactly you can find the insights that you pull this information out from. So, Rohini, I'm just going to since I have the my screen open up here, I'll just take over your control and just show the subscriber, whoever has asked this question, of where exactly can we see the the analysis portion of it. So
Okay.
I believe Rohini, you can see my screen, right?
Not yet. Oh, yes.
Perfect. So basically what happens is when you log into the CIC data platform, you immediately come to the home page over here, where you will see on your left hand side all the databases you have access to. So all you need to do is, for the analysis portion, go to the analysis option on your left over here, and that's where you got to click it. And what happens is that you will have all the analysis on this section. So the one that we were speaking today and Rohini was speaking about has been released over here. And when you click on it, you have the file opened up over here. So all you can do is, when you open the report, you can export it, obviously, and you'll have all the details over here for this particular analysis. So yeah, so this is where you would get it. And for those who are non-subscribers, who may be a little may not be familiar with the platform here, if you have or you are interested in taking a look at our platform, you can always submit a demo request. All you need to do is you got to go to the website and click on the try now and just request a demo, and one of our representatives can give you a free access to try out the service. So yeah, I'm just going to move this back to Rohini, and we'll take the next questions as and when they come. So the next question I have for you, Rohini, is can you predict the prices for the rest of the year?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, interesting question, but unfortunately, I cannot really predict the prices the rest of the year. However, seeing the trend of what it has been so far and the fact that we've had a good monsoon, also favorable base effects in terms of inflation from last year. So I would say that the headline prices would ease in the second half. I do believe that that the good rainfall will boost the agricultural output, and hopefully there's not going to be high inflation from any other source, unless there's something from fuel. I think we should be seeing an easing of the high headline numbers that we are seeing presently.
Thank you, Rohini. I'm seeing we have a few attendees who are raising their hand. But the best way to actually ask your question would be to submit your question on the right-hand corner, which is the panel section. Just make sure to type in, and we'll start answering your questions. So the next question is, in the previous policy meeting, the RBI did not cut rates given the inflation was more than the target range. Do you think there is a possibility of a rate cut in the current meeting?
Very difficult to say. As I mentioned earlier, the RBI has a twin mandate of maintaining price stability with the objective of growth in mind. Now, what happens is that, as we all know, that India is seeing quite a substantial decline in GDP output. GDP growth rate, which is 23.9% decline, and this is historically like the highest we've ever had. So I would say that a rate cut is very is necessary. But at the same time, the headline numbers are also quite high, and we're seeing an increase in core inflation. This is one of the reasons why the monetary policy, the monetary policy committee did not cut rates last time, given these same fears that growth will be declining and inflation is high. But as I said, that there is hope that inflation will ease. I do not expect them to cut rates this policy meeting, given the logic of the last meeting. But at the same time, I think there's room for a rate cut maybe in the December policy meeting. So, yeah, this is perhaps just my opinion here. Yeah.
Thank you, Rohini. Another question that just came in is, what are the issues of using linear interpolation to fill gaps in the data?
See, there can be an issue if there is high volatility in prices. Then linear interpolation will not be able to effectively capture the price movements because it's a linear interpolation. At the same time, we are looking to sort of make this more robust. So going forward, we are considering using something like a cubic line for the more volatile prices for filling the gaps, and I hope that will be more that would be better. That would make it a better indicator of the prices.
Thank you, Rohini. Another one that we have is there a correlation coefficient between inflation rate and GDP growth rate?
A correlation coefficient. Now this is a very difficult question to answer. I would say yes. I mean, it's definitely related, because if you have high inflation, then there's clearly a lot of demand, there's high purchasing power, and obviously then the monetary policy. If I keep growth constant, then that part will be the monetary policy will actually increase rates to sort of control that. But we have to consider that if growth is falling, then a rate cut is necessary to sort of boost the economy up. Now, the idea is to maintain a fine balance between the two. So I'm not sure if I can say if there's a correlation coefficient. I think that would require some more research from our end. Maybe we can connect separately on after this webinar and discuss any papers which point to that direction. I'd be very happy to discuss this. So yeah, that's okay. From my side.
Okay, so we actually went a little ahead of time. We were supposed to wrap up in like 30 minutes, but we have still a lot of questions that are coming in. We will make sure that we respond to each of your questions. So, just because we'll have to, quickly wrap this webinar up. But like I said, we will make sure that we answer all your questions. Rohini will respond to all of them. We will be having a short survey after this webinar, so would really appreciate your feedback because that helps us create these type of webinars going forward. And we have also uploaded for free, for those who are not our subscribers, you will get a copy of this India report that we spoke about on prices after this call. Like I said, we'll also be sending you a link of the presentation slides as well as the recording. And yeah, once again, thanks a lot for everybody who has joined in. It's been really good. Thank you so much, Rohini. And until the next time, let's catch up. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.